right, welcome back to the Canadian Racing Podcast, Episode 2. I'm your host, Sean Blight. Off last week, back at it this week with two guests to make up for my absence last week. I'm joined by Dalton Slack, a young up-and-coming big block modified racer in Canada. Long line, fourth generation of Slacks involved in motorsports in Canada. His great-grandfather, Bob, you may know, Canadian Motorsports Hall of Fame inductee, built and started Cayuga Speedway, which hosted a lot of major events in the 80s and 90s and into the 2000s. His grandfather, Randy Slack, was a tremendous race car driver in different forms of motorsports through different decades. And his father and uncle also involved in motorsports, and now Dalton is carrying on the family name. So we talk about his rise into racing and what his plans are for this year and beyond. We talk about his family's involvement in motorsports and his grandfather's racing career, which spanned everything from dirt to transport trucks. And if you don't know about the transport trucks racing, we'll get into that because it's a crazy story. After that, I'm joined by Will Marsh, whose family has recently purchased and is getting the season ready for Southern Ontario Motor Speedway, which some of you may know as South Buxton Speedway. There was some potential of that track not operating this year and beyond, possibly closing, and the Marsh family stepped up and saved it. So we are talking with Will Marsh about the whirlwind that has been getting that speedway ready to go racing in 2024. So I hope you enjoy the conversations, and let's get to it with Dalton Slack. All right, very happy to be joined by dirt modified driver Dalton Slack. Dalton, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a busy week with doing interviews and podcasts and all that, but I love doing them, right? So I can't complain. So I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for squeezing me in. I really appreciate it. So I got to meet you and watch you race a couple weeks ago at Port Royal. Really strong run up until the very end where I guess you had some fuel issues. How did it go? Was that your first time at Port Royal?
Yep. So that was my first time at Port Royal, first time on American Racer tires, and first time with the tall doors and bigger body. So it was interesting. Definitely different from Hoosiers and small doors, and I had a lot of fun. So I can't complain.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, so I've only been to Port Royal. That was my second time there, and the other time was to watch sprint cars. And for sprint cars, I find it's the best track. It's multi-groove racing. How did you guys find it for the big blocks?
I thought it was great. Friday was a little bit rough. Obviously, Friday's track was not up to Port Royal standards. And just when we got there Thursday, when we parked, they kind of had the track opened up, and it didn't sound like they were going to get any rain. And I guess there was an unexpected shower, and they had some rain, so they kind of lost the track by like the second practice session. But I really just can't say enough about the whole entire track staff and track crew at Port Royal, because Saturday, I think was around noon or 2 o'clock or somewhere around there, we got on the racetrack, and it was like dead smooth, no ripples, no bumps. Like it was like a whole different weekend. So it was incredible. Like it's a world class facility. Like people are saying it's on like Charlotte and Eldora levels, and I definitely agree.
Yeah, I just for me watching, I went up, I was down in the infield for the B mains and practices and all that stuff, and I went up to watch the A main in the grandstand, and they did like an hour's worth of track prep, which if you're in the stands, it can kind of get a little dull and boring, but man, there's a reason they do it because yourself, you started kind of deep. I know Jack Lehner, I think he started like 22nd and finished fourth or fifth or something. Like there was
Mhm.
passing all over the place. It was a great race. So I'm glad you kind of saw it the same way.
Yeah, it was awesome. I think me and Alex Yankowski, we've become pretty good buddies the last little while here, just same age and all that. And he's raced there, I think 4 or 5 times, he said, and they put a new surface down, and he said like he's never saw Port Royal like that, where it's kept its moisture, because 1 and 2 still had some good moisture up top. Normally from the videos it gets right up to the wall. And it still had some good moisture. So I think that just allowed people like Jack Lehner, me, Tim Fuller, and Billy Decker to get up there. So it was definitely a cool experience.
And how is it like you're a young guy, 18,
20. I
20
wish it
now?
was
20 now?
18.
And like you're up against, you talk about Tim Fuller, Jimmy Phelps. I've been watching him like seems like my whole life, Billy Decker. What's it
Yeah.
like up against guys like that? Like it's got to be pretty surreal at times.
I think in the race car, you're so zoned in that you don't realize
Yeah.
it. Like I think when Fuller and I were racing side by side there for a little while, I think it kind of caught me. I was like we've raced together for so long, but it's either I'm in the back because it's a new track, or he's having troubles, and very rarely am I up front, right? Like it's so when him and I went back and forth, it was pretty cool because we're pretty good buddies off the racetrack. So it's pretty incredible to race against your heroes, as much as it's cheesy, but
Yeah.
it's true, right? Like you've
Yep.
looked up to them guys for how long, and now you're racing side by side. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's really cool. I want to get into more of what you're doing this year, but just one more kind of question based on Port Royal, and you had a really strong run at Oswego Super Dirt Week to kind of cap off the year last year,
Mm.
and then to get a really strong run. I know you didn't finish as well as you were running, but I mean, up until the last 3 or 4 laps, you're in the top 5 or 6. How do you feel like you're growing as a driver? I mean, it's got to do nothing but help your confidence.
Yeah, I would say last year at Canandaigua was probably my third or fourth big block start. And we were like, I think we went from 22nd to like seventh, and we were good. And as a race car driver, when you're starting to grow into your mold and to actually, start racing more and more, I thought that Canandaigua maybe was a little bit of luck. And then we went to Oswego, and I thought, okay, we time trialed good, but time trials, you're by yourself,
Mhm.
right? So it's different. And then we raced good in the small block race. In the big block race, we were good, and we had a flat tire. Coincidence. Went to the back, and the track kind of rubbered. No excuse. So I maybe thought that was a little bit of luck too, because I don't want to get my confidence too high.
Mhm.
And then we went to Port Royal, and my goal was just to make the race, and then to be in the top six with 10 laps to go. I think it's kind of finally setting in that maybe I could do this. Maybe I could be good at this racing deal. So yeah, it's definitely, my confidence is higher, but not to the point where I'm gonna roll in and think I'm gonna be able to win every race. Right now it's like, okay, maybe I can get some top tens off in some bigger races, or top 12s or whatever. So I'm feeling a lot more confident going into my next race, most definitely.
For sure. All right. I want to circle back to that, but I do want to get into kind of your history, how you got into racing,
Yep.
and talk about kind of your family's history, because, I mean, to be honest, the Slack family is one of the most influential, important families in racing in Ontario in particular. So it would be your great grandfather, Bob Slack, who
Yep.
started Cayuga Speedway.
Yep.
And so Randy, your grandfather, who
Yep.
makes me feel old, but I remember him watching him run. I mean, I think literally every car that had 4 wheels on it, he got behind
Yep.
once. Uh,
Yes. Yeah.
because I seem to remember, I could be wrong. I seem to remember everything from like dirt modifieds, ASA, I think a super modified at some point. Um,
Yeah, it's hard to even keep track. Like I can't even keep track. There's pictures of dirt modifieds, and there's pictures of him racing ASA side by side with Mark Martin, and then there's pictures of him in big rigs racing at Utica Rome and Weed Sport, and well, Cuga County back then. But yeah, it's all over the place.
I remember the big rig. So do you know anything like in particular kind of about that? Like, because I don't think they were around for very long, but I remember one time I got to see them at Cayuga.
One of a kind is what I'll say. We've watched videos together of him racing, and like there's nothing that can ever compare to that. I don't think there's anything that will ever compare to it. Like you're racing Peterbilts and all that around, half miles and weed sport and all that, and like the black smoke that's coming off of them things, and they didn't go super fast, but
Mhm.
like they were, you got to imagine driving a transport truck around a dirt track. Like it's incredible. Like
Yeah.
I give them full props, and I don't think they had power steering back then, so like they had to manhandle them things around the racetrack. So I tell them, I said I couldn't do what you did. Like this year is easier than what he did back in the day, right? With technology and all that. So yeah,
Yeah, I encourage people to Google search, and maybe if you have any pictures, you can send me a couple, and I can kind of
yep,
put them in as we're talking. But yeah, those things were nuts.
yeah.
And just, and just another thing that your grandfather, like literally, he would get in anything that had four wheels or six wheels or eight wheels or whatever, he would get behind. Uh,
Anything. I think he's the only guy who can probably drive a transport truck, an ASA car, a dirt modified. He's done everything, like everything imagined. So
and so, how did you? Obviously, racing's in your blood, in your family's blood. But how did you? When did you start? What was kind of your entry into racing?
7 years old, I think it was seven, started just go-kart racing at Maryville. Was not good at all. The first like 2 years of my career, it was like, I don't know if I could do this. And I don't know what. Oh well, I changed my number to be the three, and then
Mhm.
all of a sudden, I don't know if the stars aligned, and then it was like game on from there. Started getting better, started traveling like a lot. Went down to New York, Pennsylvania, everywhere, and then at the end of my go kart career was probably my best, and then that's when we were going to Missouri. We went down to Missouri for the big junior race. It was 21,000 to win. We were probably the best in the Northeast in go-karts. It wasn't me that was good. It was definitely dad setup wise. It was he just put a lot of hard work and hours into it, no different than today. And I'm just the lucky guy that gets to drive it, I guess. So
That's awesome. So when did the small block kind of big block when did that start for you?
small block, I raced a novice sportsman one time and very, very easy to forget. It was not a great showing. But that was the first ever time I got in it. It wasn't our car, it wasn't nothing. And then we put a sportsman in one of our cars, and we went to open practice, and it blew up. So I think that was the final straw and said, okay, we're done with sportsman. You're just gonna race a small block because we had small blocks,
Yeah,
right? So 14 years old, I think it was 14, 15 it was. I started racing small blocks. I look back at it now and I still think it's crazy to think I did that. But yeah, 15 I'd say was my first year in it, and just raced Maryville. And then last year was my first year in big blocks. Kind of circumstances that happened with Maryville and the tire testing and all that led me down a different path. And Eric Rudolph drove and Quebec, our big block car, and they had that deal already lined up for a year. So it
mhm,
wasn't like I wasn't going to take it from them.
yep,
And then started running some big block stuff, and then kind of some bad luck happened, just some gremlins in the race car, and then finally got our first good run at Canandaigua last year. And so I say my big block starts are probably under 10. I haven't raced, yeah, probably almost under seven, to be honest. I haven't raced a big block that much.
Was your first, correct me if I'm wrong, was your first big block race not at Weedsport, or was it
Yes.
it what I because I
It,
think I was at that race because I remember I think the announcer saying that it was. So I'm pretty sure I was there.
yes, and another race to forget, very easy. And we
Well, I
had
was going to say that's not the easiest track to just go out in a big block your first time.
Yeah, we had some issues. We had some fuel issues going on, and we diagnosed them when we got back to the shop. And it was the car just wasn't physically running right. So I don't think it was a great first showing, but I think the last 5 or 6 races shows that we can be competitive. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how we are now compared to where we started.
For sure. I did want to circle back. One thing you mentioned, switching to the three. I'm a history nerd when it comes to everything, especially racing. That number, that paint scheme is so iconic. It's one of the most beautiful cars, race cars you'll see, in my opinion.
Yep.
Was that something you wanted to do, or is that something your family kind of said, hey, maybe follow in the family footsteps kind of thing?
Yeah, when I was young, just being young and being influenced by people I was around, I was probably the biggest Matt Shepard fan on planet Earth. So I was actually the 8S. I wasn't the 9S. I was the 8S.
Okay.
And then eventually, I think we just got to that point where Grandpa wanted to come help a little bit more on the go-kart side of things, and I think Dad just was like, okay, like we're just gonna change our number, and so my go-kart looked exactly what every single race car we've ever owned, and then it's been three ever since. And we started with the three in the go-karts, and then it's been my number ever since then. And then I think one time we were like 54. I think Dad had an old go-kart body and we were 54, but it's been almost 12 years and counting. It's been the three. So, and then the RS happened with the small block because Randy Slack. So,
Right. So do you get a lot of people kind of coming up to you, or people around the car just kind of recognizing that car? Because it's something that goes back like 30 years, maybe 40.
yeah, like I get more people coming up to the race car being like, I know this race car. I know this race car from Cuga Speedway when it raced
Mhm.
ASA. And not many people know who I am, but people love Grandpa
Yeah.
because like that was the big, he was the hero around here back in the day, right?
Yep.
So it's pretty cool to see the older generation come in come in and see the newer generation of the race car. And it's just it's so iconic. I'm very lucky to be born into this family, right? Like it's pretty incredible.
That's cool. And I mean, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I hope that car stays around. Like, I'm an asphalt modified guy too, and you see Old Blue, the blue number 3. Like, there's just
Yep.
some cars that are just so iconic, and you just don't want to see them leave. So I think it's really cool when I see that car in the pits.
Yeah, it will never change. Never ever. I know it
Uh,
won't.
so we're up to speed on this year. So you're not running the Super Dirt Car Series full time yet, or Short Track Super Series. What are your plans for this year?
This year's plans will be Friday night's going to be Ransomville. That's just going to be so we can keep our small block program together. We'll race small blocks throughout the year, but just the big blocks are just a lot easier. It almost, makes it sound like tech's a lot easier, and there's not the small blocks are almost becoming as much as big blocks nowadays.
Hmm.
So to go out and race a big block, and the tech is very limited because you don't need all that horsepower. So Friday night's gonna be Ransomville, and then Saturday night's going to be Canandaigua. Kind of landed on that because we don't want to go to Burton, and that's on Fridays.
Hmm.
And I think the next closest would be like maybe Albany or Fonda, and that's American Racers and just too far away. So Canandaigua, I think, is going to be great. So as much as we didn't plan this, Matt and I will be basically up and down the road together all year.
Great.
So yeah, it's going to be good. And then gonna go to just a lot of early shows right now. So like we'll go to Can-Am, I guess for the second race of the Super Dirt Series program, and hoping to go to Utica Rome the next week for the opener, the Alex Friesen Remember race, and then whenever we get off time, and I'd like to follow the Super Dirt Series as best as possible, but I think I told you I don't really want to go to New Jersey
Yep.
tomorrow. So I love racing. I'll race any day of the week, but it's just with working a full-time job, it takes a lot out of you.
No, no, absolutely. Just quickly, the small blocks and the big blocks. I mean, the cars basically appear identical.
Yep.
As a driver, what are the major differences? Because you do see small blocks racing against big blocks, and depending on, I guess, the track, like a
Yep.
track like Ransomville, or a technical track like Weedsport, they seem to run pretty evenly. Um, what are some of the basic differences behind the wheel of one?
I think the biggest difference is obviously the obvious, just horsepower, right? Nowadays, I find that I feel like way back in the day, not way back in the day, but years, a good amount of years, you could take a small block to a big block race and compete. But our cars are so hooked up nowadays. The technology, the left side pan hard, everything involved in that. It's hard to beat a big block this today, especially with guys like the Matt and Matt show. It's hard to beat them guys, right? Like it's not easy. So anywhere that it's a small block, big block race, you're better off taking a big block. Um, our big block, small block are identical. You can't tell any difference. There's nothing really that's different beside what's in between the chassis, and yeah, that's about it.
So, how do you beat Matt Shepard?
Do you want a serious question? Serious answer? My joking would be him wreck or a flat tire, which I hope that never happens because I
Yeah.
want to beat him when he's at his best. Serious experience.
Mm.
Just trying to get as good as possible with the races that we do. There's going to be nights that he's going to be off his game. Like the small block show at Oswego, we were side by side for like 75 laps. Um, it's circumstances. It's how your night plays out. Some nights you're gonna be the balls, some nights you're gonna be the bat. And I hope a lot of the nights that we're the bat, and I hope that we can compete and be good with him. But he is so special in his own way that people say he can get in any car and win, but that takes a lot of talent. Like the highlights from Port Royal, he drove that racetrack completely different than anybody else.
Mhm.
He was never sideways. He was always straight. He was on a different tire compound than everybody else, and he just has so much natural talent that it's you almost a lot of the other guys are really hoping that their car can make up for that. I don't have that natural talent. I think I have that natural talent with Bob being behind the setup program. Um, but I just the serious answer to that is experience. Trying to beat him, experience, having a good night, putting it all together, and not being behind the eight ball.
It's a funny thing because if you're a fan of watching the big blocks, you're either generally a Matt Shepard fan or you're cheering for whoever else can beat him. And it's no
Correct.
different than Donnie Schatz in his prime or Steve Kinser
Yep.
or Scott Bloomquist in the late model side. Um,
Yep.
but it just seems you're watching the race, at least from the stands, and he seems to recognize before anyone else when another groove is the way to go, and he seems to find that, just that, like you said, natural talent. It really is impressive to watch.
It is. It's truly incredible. And I wasn't around for the Brett Hearn years of our sport.
Hmm.
I caught him at the end of his career, and he was pretty incredible. And everybody says that it's him and Shepard that are the goats. And but just he is just both of them are just so naturally gifted that it's going to be hard to beat them. But when you do, it's going to be a really good feeling, and you'll hold on to that for a while.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so just kind of big picture, you said you've got another job. Just tell us what you're up to, what your goals are, like where do you see yourself, where do you want to be in terms of racing?
Yeah, so I work full time at Bicknell Racing Products. Obviously, Bob Slack, he is a partner in Bicknell Racing Products. So Randy Williamson, Pete Bicknell, and Bob Slack are partners in it. And I'd say about 4 years ago, I came on full time right out of high school, and just ever since then been his right hand man. In the winter times, I weld chassis. It gets repetitive, but we pride ourselves on having the best race cars and having the best looking race cars and the fastest race cars. So when you do something repetitive, it gets to be old. But when you have so much pride in your work, it never gets old. I could weld race cars every day for the rest of my life because I love seeing our race cars win.
Yeah.
I haven't won much in my career because it's early. I hope I can win a bunch, but I can compare a win to somebody walking up to us who has just recently changed chassis brands or who has been a loyal customer and basically saying, thank you. Thank you for giving us the best race car and thank you for giving us the customer support. And it's incredible. I love it. I if I would I Dad and I joked about this. I told him, I said, I really wish I wasn't getting real good at this racing deal because then I could just work full time at the business and eventually take over his job.
Hmm.
But the racing part is kind of just where how much I want to race. I want to race every day of the week, but I'm limited with being full time at Bicknell Racing Products. So I think the big goal maybe in 5 years would be 5 to 10 would be maybe eventually down the road somebody says, kind of like Matt Steele Williamson, where he gets a car for the Super Dirt Series and he still has his car at home. I don't ever want to stop racing out of this shop. It's a family atmosphere and there's nothing that will ever compare to it. So eventually one day, whoever comes along, if it's a team like an HBR or a Hollamar, Stu Friesen, or just one of the bigger teams, if I could get behind the wheel, then that would be incredible. But I know I have to prove it. It's not going to come along because of my name or because of my financial backings. It's going to be because I either went out, won a bunch of races, or um, I think that's basically it. And nobody's going to hire anybody who doesn't have the resume, right? So I would like to eventually get to the full time portion, but that's just gonna come with time. I'm not in a rush. I know that if I won Port Royal on Saturday night, that Monday at 6:55 a.m. I was probably gonna be punching back into Bicknell Racing Products. So
Well, good for you, man. I know we'll all be watching. I'm gonna make a couple trips to Land of Legends this summer, so I know I'll see you there. And Ransomville, Weedsport, I'll be at those places, so I'll come say hi. If
yeah.
people want to follow along with your career, where can they find you on social media?
So my Twitter is just Dalton Slack. My Instagram, I think, is Dalton Slack 3. My Facebook, I finally caved in and made a racing page because that's what's big nowadays.
Mhm.
So it's Dalton Slack Racing. Just gives, like everybody else, gives an insight on what our schedule is and what we do day-to-day basis and results and all that. And then my personal Facebook is just Dalton Slack. And then obviously Bicknell Racing Products has their own Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, so they can all follow there as well.
Perfect. Awesome, man. Really appreciate your time, especially going into Easter weekend. So thanks for setting aside some time for me. I really appreciate it, man. And best of luck this year and down the road.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. I appreciate I've told everybody I appreciate every time I get on a platform, no matter how big or small, because just lets people hear my voice and gets to see me. So I really appreciate everything you do.
Love it. I love it, man. Well, yeah, thanks again.
No problem. Have a good night.
You too. All right. I am here with Will Marsh. The Marsh family has purchased and is now operating the Southern Ontario Motor Speedway. Will, thanks for coming on.
I really appreciate having us on. I have the opportunity to speak with the track.
Yeah, can't wait. So before we get too much into this, you guys came into to purchasing the track fairly recently. Just maybe give us a brief explanation or discussion of how that happened.
Honestly, it was really as odd as it could be. It was just one of those times where we were kind of getting ready, rebuilding the car and stuff, and then we heard the track was being sold, and didn't really give it too much thought at first, but then started actually hearing more about it was official and was going up kind of thing, and started being more and more intrigued. Got a hold of Henry and started seeing what kind of deal we could work out, and everything just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the for people who maybe aren't too familiar, kind of word of the track being up for sale came fairly late, kind of into the winter. So kind of how long did the process take from you guys reaching out or Henry reaching out to you guys to kind of putting that whole thing together?
Honestly, it's overall pretty fairly quick. I think the first one went and talked to Henry. I think it was like March 8th, and it all kind of just went from there. It was all pretty fairly quick. Obviously, some things are still being finalized in certain areas, but uh, it's overall been really smooth, and it went by like the process has been really easy going on. I think both sides so far. I can't really speak for Henry, but I think on both sides.
Awesome. And you guys just had a drivers meeting fairly recently. Kind of, I guess, how did that go? What's the feedback been like? What are kind of some things that you guys are looking to maybe uh, change or put your own stamp on maybe going forward?
Yes, sir. We had the driver meeting on March 24th. We had a great turnout. We were obviously a little nervous to see how many guys would show up, kind of thing, and not only to show up, but want to actually register and stuff. But so far, we had 130 drivers register, and we
Oh,
are still getting messages to this day. I'm meeting another guy on Thursday for his driver registration. But overall, for our plans for the track this year, we want to finish the bathroom, finish the kitchen, install the bathroom area. We want to put recycling asphalt all along the parking lot area,
mhm.
install better lighting and speakers in the pit area, as well as a tech barn. And then obviously there's going to be some changes to the track for the safety features that have been spoken about that a lot of guys know about. So we're going to be making changes in turn 3 on the exit. We're going to add in a gate, as well as reinforcing turn 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 to keep not only spectators back a little bit better, but in general reinforce the fence just to make drivers feel that much more secure.
That's awesome. So a lot of these kind of suggestion or a lot of these changes, I guess, are these things that you yourself and your family kind of talked about doing, or is this kind of feedback from other drivers?
Honestly, a lot of it's just things that we just from going around and try like as a racing and a traveling series,
Mm.
we've just kind of picked up certain things that we liked at tracks and that we wanted to add it in. But as well as we definitely were trying to talk to the community and different drivers and anybody that really is willing to give us their input and just see how we can actually make the best facility on and off the track. That's really all we're looking to do is all that's what everybody wants to do, but it's one of those things where that's just we're kind of slowly hoping we do a bit each year and slowly just keep improving the track enough where guys really start having faith again in South Buxton and come back.
So with everything that's kind of gone on from you guys taking over the track till now, and everything, May 11th, it looks like is your opening day. How crazy has it been up to this point, and what do you expect kind of leading up to opening night?
Yes, sir. It's definitely been busy. We're just excited to get to May 11th and have our starting night. But overall, it's just really it's more the paper side of our things right now. We're just excited to once things get moving a little more, a little faster. We're excited to get all the actual construction done on the track and get working because we know May is approaching fast. So it's one of those things that we know, time is overall against us, and we're gonna be doing construction throughout the entire season. But it's really one of those things that we don't got any complaints, but it's a lot of learning curves overall. But we think each year is going to go better and better, and it's one of those things that once we learn it, we'll know, and next year will be a little smoother.
Right. It's what you signed up for, right?
Yes, sir. We're all about learning, and we don't hold anybody concerns or suggestions back. We want to hear them all.
Awesome. So, yeah, I'm pulling up your schedule here. You've got a couple test nights leading up to your opening night. Looks like Saturday, May 11th. Just tell people about what they can expect to see, maybe just on the regular shows, regular Saturday nights, and we'll get into kind of the special events that are heading to the Speedway.
Yes, sir. So we will have 4 tests and tunes in total before opening night on Saturday, the 11th of May. But yeah, we will have a couple different series coming this year. We are trying to really show everybody that we are passionate about racing and that we want the best for this track. It's not just a business to us. This is something that we truly love. We want to see the best racing. We want to put on the best shows we can, kind of thing. So we are bringing back we're bringing the Ontario traditional sprints, the Southern Ontario sprints, the Great Lakes super sprints. We will be having two crate sprint races,
Mhm.
as well as bringing the vintage mods and the Great Lake Legends. We will also be doing a tractor pull. It's not 100% official yet. There's no date on that yet, but it's so far without any actually being signed, it's official kind of thing. So we'll hopefully that'll be released soon.
Awesome. So yeah, looks like the big 360 Great Lakes Super Sprints teaming up with the Southern Ontario Sprints. That is, looks like July 13th. That's going to be an awesome show.
Yes, sir. We were definitely excited to not only work with them, but Barry, the president, is a great guy, and we were just really trying to bring the wing series back more to Southern Ontario because it's something that we found through the rest of Ontario. It's so big, but here is really more the late model or the late model modified world, which
Mhm.
obviously is great racing and everyone loves them. But we want to kind of just add them all in. I mean, we want to have a little bit more diversity in each week, and that kind of if you're more of a sprint car, you can go next week. If you want more of a late model guy, you can go that week. Kind of it's give you a little bit more of a choice.
Yeah, so something for everybody coming up this season. Um, Will, for those who maybe don't know, talk about a bit about your racing history and your family's racing history. How did you guys get into motorsports?
Overall, my family has a long history of racing. My grandfather raced, my uncle raced. My dad obviously fell in love racing, so I grew up pretty much at the racetrack with him, helping him change tires, fill up the gas tank. Just doing basic little things like that, helping him learn in the shop. And it was just something that stuck with me. I started racing when I was 9 years old and was fortunate enough to win the championship at Grand Bend Speedway in the micro sprint division. And stopped racing for a while, but I started again up when I was about 19 or 20 at Delaware Speedway. Raced trucks for about 4 or 5 years. Had a great time there, but it was a division that was slowly dying out. So I went to full throttle at Barney last year and raced or 2 years ago, sorry, raced
Mhm.
the 440 Ontario Pro Sprints. And then last year I decided to kind of change it up. So I always wanted to race dirt and bought a 602 crate sprint and started racing at Oswego and actual sprint tour, traveling around. And it was a lot to learn, but it was exciting. And I don't regret anything. And I wish, honestly, I wish I switched a lot earlier. I wish someone would told me how fun dirt was.
And so you're still going to be running kind of a part-time schedule this year with the crates then?
Yes, sir. So at the beginning of the season, I don't plan on running too much. I know they do like Auction runs Friday, but it's one of those things I don't plan on running too much until we have a solid routine and just schedule down at our track. I want to make sure we have a good routine and program for us first and for our fans, and then worry about the fun of it all after, and get to hopefully some more racing. But overall, I am looking to do at least 5 to 10 races kind of thing, and then I'll also be racing with the wingless series, the Ontario Traditional Sprints at South Buxton. So it's one of those things that I still will get my chance to race a little bit this season, not as much as I originally was thinking, but the opportunity that is in front of me now is it's much greater in the long run. I have no complaints.
That's awesome. Definitely, I wanted to have you on. Racetracks are kind of closing all over the place. It seems like every month you hear stories of tracks kind of having to shut their doors. So it's great to see that the folks in Southern Ontario are still going to have their track. Um, what is there anything that you need any way that if you want to get involved, if a company or individuals want to get involved in sponsoring or anything, how would they get in touch with you?
All of our information, so Craig March Jr. is handling all the financial details and all like the bookwork side of things. Craig March is the owner, but all of their information is on the Facebook website as well as Southern Ontario Motor Speedway website.
Mhm.
We will still be doing more updates to the official website, but at this time though, you can find both their phone numbers on the website and on Facebook.
Okay, and you guys are on Instagram as well.
Yes, sir. We're on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram.
Okay, excellent. Anything else that any information or anything that you want to pass on to folks about the Speedway?
Honestly, we're just really grateful for this opportunity. It's one of those things that I'm grateful to have my brother and my dad alongside with me. They both working so hard at this. My brother's been on the phone nonstop every day. Just Craig, his name.
Mhm.
He's been working away, and he honestly is the one that got all these guys to come on board overall. So it's one of those things that we all play a special role, and we all just really want to see this track succeed, and we all just really just want to grow the dirt world in Southern Ontario that much more kind of thing. And so we're just excited to just start the year, honestly, as much as we wanted to start the construction and everything. It's just, we just want to start it all and just, get going.
Absolutely. Folks, get out, support your local tracks. I'm going to repost all the information that people need on my social media platforms to find Southern Ontario Motor Speedway. And then you can get in touch with Will and Marche Motorsports and the Speedway through that as well. Really appreciate you coming on, Will. Can't wait to see the track. I've actually never been, but now that I'm living kind of closer to the area, I have no excuse not to check it out. So I can't wait to get down there and congratulations to you and your family. I can't wait to see what you guys have in store.
I truly appreciate you having me on here and for your support. I can't wait to have you at the track, and I promise I will make it worth it. I just want to throw in as well because I forgot to add that we
Mhm.
will be doing weekly recording. It will be getting released on probably like a Tuesday, but overall we will be recording every single race on Saturday all season long.
Okay, perfect. Will, thanks again for coming on.
No problem at all. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
All right. I want to thank Dalton Slack once again and Will Marsh for joining me this week. Some great conversations there. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Next week, we've got a big show planned. I'm going to do a preview of the upcoming Race of Champions modified season and modified asphalt modified racing in general. I've got 3 guests joining me next week, including Jake Lutz, who is a driver with the Race of Champions modifieds, and going to do a couple of Wheeling modified shows as well. Dave Buchanan, who is the voice, the play-by-play voice for the Race of Champions modified tour, and from Modifieds Daily, Keith Lussier is going to join me as well. So an action-packed show next week. I hope you tune in. If you have any questions for the guests that I've got coming next week, feel free to reach out. If you have any comments, if you want to be on the show, a part of the show, hit me up at Canadian Racing Tours on all your major platforms. See you next week.